What's in a Name? Written by the Jolly Mariner. Told by Adam Ward. Many years ago, back when the Northwestern Railway was still being formed, several engines had been loaned from the other railway to help with the railway's operations. One of them was a red tender engine named John. John was a hard worker, willing to pull any train given to him, and was friendly to everyone he met, even Edward. But as the years went past, John seemed to become quieter. He did his work with barely a word, and sometimes appeared to be quite disheartened. It all came to a head one summer's evening. Edward backed into the shed after delivering his last train of the day. John was the only other engine there. "Goodness me!" exclaimed Edward. "I'm always happy to work, but this is quite a lot to handle." After Henry had been shut up in the tunnel, Edward and John had to do his work as well as their own. They didn't mind the extra work, but the summer heat was making them both a little more irritable than usual. "Quite so," grumbled John. "It's hard to feel useful when the passengers don't respect you." "I'm sure they do," comforted Edward. "But all the same, it is quite tiresome that so many of our passengers have been calling me Gordon recently." John seemed to bite his tongue. "An engine's name is very important," continued Edward. "It's their identity, given to them when they were first built. It's something every engine is proud of. It's only right to get our names right. Wouldn't you agree, John?" John paused, then finally found his voice. "Well, Edward, I must say I don't quite agree with all that," began John. "What do you mean?" "Names are very important, but I don't think every engine is proud of their name. In fact, I'm sure there are many engines who don't even like their name and would change it if they could." Edward was puzzled. "But why? I've never known an engine to be unsatisfied with their name." He paused. "Are you, John?" John hesitated. "Yes, Edward, I am. In fact, I've been unhappy with it for years now." "Years?" asked Edward, now feeling quite ashamed of his earlier complaints. "Is this why you've become so quiet? Why didn't you say anything?" "It sounds so ridiculous," sighed John. "An engine not being proud of their name? Who ever heard of such a thing? I was sure everyone would say I was silly for thinking so." "Nonsense," comforted Edward. "You have the right to be called whatever you want, and if others don't agree, then they're just being fuddy-duddies. You are who you are, and no one can take your true identity away from you." John smiled warmly at their old friend. "Now, what would you like your new name to be?" asked Edward kindly. John paused. "Jane," she finally decided. "What a beautiful name," smiled Edward. "Jane it shall be." And for the first time in years, Jane smiled broadly. "Thank you, Edward." It took some time for everyone to become accustomed to the name change, but they were all more than accepting of it. Jane was happier than she could put into words. After so many years, she finally felt happy with who she was.